Iran just attacked the wrong US Navy ship, and within minutes, they were already out of time to fix it. At 6:19 local time, 4 ballistic missiles were already in the air, and dozens of low-altitude contacts were racing toward an American carrier group in the Gulf. On board the USS Abraham Lincoln, the morning strike cycle was routine, until the Hawkeye above them saw something that changed everything in seconds. 4 ballistic signatures, dozens of incoming air contacts, and almost no time to react before impact. This wasn't a single attack. This was layered, coordinated, and designed to overwhelm every defense system at once. On the USS Spruance, the spy radar suddenly filled with 30 fast-moving contacts flying low and slow through the coastal haze. The tactical action officer didn't hesitate, and 4 seconds was all it took to identify them as one-way Iranian attack drones. Cheap, expendable, and deadly enough to cripple a warship if even one slipped through. General quarters blared across the ship. Every sailor moved. Every system came alive. There was no more routine, only survival. Hatches slammed shut. Damage control teams sprinted. Weapons crews locked in. The ship transformed from a floating base into a battlefield. Above the deck, an MH-60 helicopter launched immediately, armed and scanning, ready to intercept anything that broke through the outer defenses. At the same time, electronic warfare systems activated, projecting false signals into the environment, bending enemy targeting away from the ship's real position. It was like sending attackers to the wrong address, while watching from the shadows. But this was only the first wave. At 9 miles out, the Mk-45 5-inch gun roared to life, firing timed airburst shells into the incoming drone formation. It didn't need to hit directly. It just needed to get close enough to shred them mid-air. 2 drones fell instantly. A third took damage, but kept flying. The gun cycled again, and again. Every 3 seconds, another round, another chance to stop something that only needed 1 hit. 24 contacts. 21. The numbers were dropping, but not fast enough. 90 miles away, another destroyer, the USS Michael Murphy, was fighting the same battle, with the same impossible math. Then the situation changed again. Surface contacts, high speed, 40 knots. Iranian fast attack boats were now charging toward the ships, loaded with explosives, yet aiming to ram and detonate on impact. Now the crew had 2 threats, in 2 different directions, and only 1 main gun. There was no perfect choice, so they made the only one that mattered. Turn hard, break the formation, buy time. White water exploded behind the destroyer as it maneuvered at full speed, disrupting the attack boat's coordinated assault. A group attack could overwhelm defenses, but a scattered attack becomes target practice. The ship's 25mm cannons locked on. The helicopter engaged. 1 boat exploded. Another vanished in a fireball. But even as the boats scattered, the drones were still coming, and the crew knew something was wrong. This felt too coordinated, too deliberate, like something bigger was still coming. Then the call came. Vampire. 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 Anti-ship missiles. Not drones, not boats. Real missiles, already in the air. And everything before this had just been a distraction. The anti-ship missiles were already airborne, skimming just meters above the ocean, invisible to most radars until it was almost too late. 4 missiles. Subsonic speed. Sea-skimming profile. They weren't fast enough to outrun, but they were low enough to kill before you could react. The Spruance Tayo didn't wait. Vertical launch system, armed. 3 SM-2 missiles blasted out of the forward cells in rapid succession, punching through the air toward the incoming threat. Radar illuminators snapped into position, guiding each interceptor like a spotlight tracking something moving too fast to see. But there was a problem. Too many targets. Not enough beams. Each SM-2 needed constant radar guidance in the final seconds, and the ship only had limited channels to control them all. Every time the radar switched targets, One missile flew blind, and blind meant dead. Chaff rockets fired from the deck, exploding into clouds of metallic fragments, creating false radar signatures larger than the ship itself. To the incoming missiles, the ocean suddenly filled with ghosts. Some locked onto them, some didn't. The ship turned hard, presenting the smallest possible radar cross-section, slicing through the water at flank speed. Every second mattered now. At 11 miles, the first intercept. A flash on the horizon, one missile gone. At 8 miles, another hit. But the remaining 2 were still coming. Closer, lower, deadlier. On the USS Michael Murphy, the geometry was worse. Missiles approaching from multiple angles, radar beams splitting between targets. Too many threats, or too little time. One interceptor lost a lock for just a fraction of a second. 400 meters of blind flight, enough to miss. The crew didn't hesitate. 2 more SM-2s launched instantly, correcting the failure, racing to close the gap before impact. 6 miles, 4 miles, 2 miles, impact distance. Then, 2 explosions in rapid succession. Both missiles destroyed, just seconds before reaching the ship. The Murphy survived, barely. But even as the crews caught their breath, they realized something far worse. The drones had forced them to turn. The boats had split their firepower. The missiles had drained their defenses. And now, they had almost nothing left, because above them, still falling from space, were 4 ballistic warheads. And this time, they couldn't shoot back. While the destroyers fought for their lives below, the real threat had never changed. 4 ballistic warheads were still falling from the edge of space. At 25,000 feet above the strike group, the Hawkeye updated the track, Mach 5, and accelerating. Time to impact, just over 10 minutes. There was nothing the Spruance or the Murphy could do. Their weapons couldn't reach that high. Their fight was already over, but someone else had been watching the entire time. Silent, waiting. 100 miles to the north, the USS Frank Peterson Jr. hadn't fired a single shot. Not because it couldn't, but because it was saving everything for this moment. Inside its combat information center, the room was quiet. No shouting, no panic, just numbers. 4 tracks, 4 solutions. And one chance to get it right, because if they missed, the carrier dies. The Peterson wasn't carrying normal missiles. It carried SM-3 interceptors, weapons designed not for air, but for space. When launched, they don't explode. They don't detonate. They don't even carry a warhead. They kill by hitting. A bullet striking another bullet at 10 times the speed of sound. The TAO had been calculating intercept geometry since the first launch detection, waiting for the perfect moment. Not too early, not too late, because in space, timing is everything. Then, the solution locked. 5 SM-3 missiles launched within seconds, roaring out of their cells and climbing straight into the upper atmosphere. Through clouds, through air, into the black, at altitude. Thus the interceptor vehicles separated from their boosters. Small, cold, deadly precise. Above the Earth's atmosphere, there was no sound, no explosion, only mathematics. Each interceptor adjusted its path in real time, tracking a target the size of a refrigerator moving faster than a rifle bullet. One miss, and everything below pays the price. The first intercept, clean. A warhead vanished. The second, another direct hit. The third, gone. 3 of 4. Inside the CIC, nobody celebrated, because the last one was wrong. Its trajectory didn't match. Its speed didn't match. Something was off. Then, it split. 2 objects. One slowing down, one maintaining speed, a decoy, and a real warhead. The interceptor had seconds to decide. On choose wrong, and the real one gets through. Choose right, and everything ends here. The system adjusted, not dramatically, just enough. And then, impact. The real warhead shattered in the upper atmosphere. Fragments burned as they fell back to Earth. 4 targets, 4 kills. For a brief moment, the entire strike group breathed. They had survived, but survival was not the end of this story. Because now, they knew exactly where the missiles came from. And this time, they were going to answer. The carrier group had survived. But survival wasn't the mission. Because now, they knew exactly where the missiles came from. And this time, they were going to answer. Within minutes, 2 FA-18 Super Hornets were already on the catapult, engines screaming at full military power. No delay, no hesitation. This wasn't defense anymore. This was retaliation. An EA-18 Growler launched behind them, not carrying bombs, but something just as powerful. Silence. Its electronic warfare system flooded Iranian radar frequencies, blinding everything that tried to see what was coming next. To anyone watching, it looked like nothing was there. But something was, flying low, fast, and already inside Iranian airspace. The Hornets climbed only when they had to, hugging the terrain. I'm staying invisible for as long as possible, because time was running out. Somewhere ahead, mobile missile launchers were already moving. If they reached hardened shelters, this entire attack could happen again tomorrow. And that could not be allowed. The targeting pod activated. Thermal vision swept across the landscape, scanning every road, every vehicle, every heat signature moving through the terrain. Then, they saw it. A faint thermal glow under a truck chassis. Residual heat. A missile that had fired less than an hour ago. Still burning, still exposed. The WSO locked it instantly. And then, another. 2 more further down the road. All moving toward a tunnel entrance carved into the mountainside. Safety. Rearm. Repeat. The clock was ticking on 4 minutes until they disappeared underground. Fuel state dropping. Wingman still repositioning. And something else. Moving in the trees. A flash. Infrared spike. Manpads launch. No warning. No radar. Just a missile already in the air. Brake right! Flares exploded behind the jet, burning bright in the sky as the missile curved toward the decoys instead of the engine. It hit the hillside. Close. Too close. But the maneuver cost them time. Precious time. The convoy had moved. Closer to the tunnel. Closer to escape. Now, there was only one aircraft in position to strike. One chance. One pass. The pilot didn't hesitate. He rolled in. The trucks filled the targeting screen, ground crews running, disconnecting cables, trying to save whatever they could. They were too late. Weapons released. 2 bombs dropped clean, guidance fins snapping open as they adjusted course mid-air. Seconds stretched. Impact. The valley floor erupted. Fire tore through the convoy. Secondary explosions followed instantly as fuel and munitions ignited in sequence. The first launchers were gone, but not all of them. The wingman came back in. Another pass. Another release. This time, aimed directly at the tunnel entrance. The bombs hit just as the last vehicle tried to disappear inside. The entrance collapsed in a violent explosion, sealing everything behind it. Whatever made it inside was now buried. Permanently. The pilots pulled away, fuel gauges dropping into the warning zone. No celebration, no hesitation. Mission complete. Behind them, the Growler continued jamming for a few seconds longer, just enough to make sure nothing followed them home. Then it turned and disappeared, back over the water, back to safety. Hours earlier, Iran had launched everything they had. Drones, boats, missiles, ballistic weapons, a perfect layered attack. And for a moment, it almost worked, but they chose the wrong target. They attacked a system designed for war. And in the end, they didn't just fail, they exposed everything and lost it, all in a single morning.